The Marlowe International Hotel glimmered like a jewel against the night sky, its glass facade reflecting the warm city lights. Inside, the lobby smelled faintly of polished mahogany and imported lilies flown in just for this week. Everything about the place was designed to scream exclusivity: the marble floors from Italy, the chandelier that had once hung in a French palace, the velvet rope sectioning off the private elevators. Tonight, it was hosting the Global Investment Summit, an event that pulled the world's wealthiest and most powerful into one room. Billionaires, heads of state, celebrities, and royalty brushed shoulders here, all dressed in gowns and tailored suits worth more than the average person's annual salary. The air hummed with low voices, the clinking of crystal glasses, and the sharp rhythm of designer shoes on marble. But away from the glitz, just beyond the bright circle of power, Aisha Coleman was on her knees, scrubbing a faint coffee stain from the floor near the main ballroom entrance. The hotel had given her a fresh uniform that morning, a crisp black dress with a stiff white apron, and a cap to keep her hair neatly tucked away. She hated the cap. It itched against her scalp, but she wore it because the manager had warned her twice that presentation matters when serving our distinguished guests. Her hands smelled faintly of industrial cleaning fluid, and her back ached from an 18-hour shift. Aisha was used to the rhythm of invisibility. People rarely noticed her unless she was in their way. They walked past without making eye contact, their conversations flowing as if she were just another piece of furniture. She didn't mind anymore, not as much as she used to. After all, she had a job, and that job paid enough to keep the lights on at home, food on the table for her younger brother Malik, and medication for her mother. But somewhere, buried under years of exhaustion, was the memory of a different life, a life where she'd been the brightest student in her university's linguistics department. She spoke 7 languages fluently, including Arabic, but those days of promise and academic awards had been traded for practicality when tragedy struck her family. The ballroom doors swung open suddenly, and the hum of voices from inside spilled into the corridor. A ripple moved through the crowd as cameras began to flash. That was when she saw him, Prince Kareem Al-Rashid of the Kingdom of Al-Sahara. He was taller than she expected, his posture commanding but not arrogant. The white folds of his thobe gleamed under the crystal lights, and the gold embroidery caught every movement like liquid sunlight. A perfectly arranged gutra framed his sharp cheekbones and tanned skin, while his dark eyes scanned the room with a mix of caution and control. Flanking him were 2 advisors in dark suits, along with a small unit of bodyguards whose earpieces glinted faintly under the light. The room adjusted to him instantly, conversations dipped, posture straightened, eyes followed him. He carried the kind of presence that made people feel the need to prove themselves worthy in his company. The prince's reputation preceded him, young, ambitious, and unafraid to challenge traditions in his kingdom. Some called him a reformer, others whispered that he was dangerous. Aisha kept her head down, still rubbing at the stain, but she was close enough to hear his voice when he leaned toward one of his advisors. The rich cadence of Arabic rolled off his tongue, a language Aisha had once spent years studying and perfecting. The prince said softly, his tone light with amusement. "Look at her, I doubt she even understands what we're saying." The advisor smirked, glancing briefly at Aisha before replying. "She's just a cleaning lady." The words slid under her skin, not because they were cruel, they were almost casual, but because of the certainty in them. She wasn't meant to understand. She was meant to remain an object in the background, a fixture with no voice. For a moment, she considered ignoring it, letting the words drift past like all the other dismissals she had endured in this job. But something in her rebelled. Maybe it was the fatigue of too many double shifts. Maybe it was the memory of her professors telling her she had a gift for language. Maybe it was just that she was tired of being furniture. She rose slowly, rag still in hand, and looked directly at the prince. Meeting the eyes of royalty without invitation was not something most dared to do, but Aisha didn't flinch. Her voice was steady, her pronunciation flawless, as she said, "Titles do not make a person more valuable. His actions do." The effect was instantaneous. Conversations in the corridor stuttered to silence. Even the faint strains of music from inside the ballroom seemed to pause. The advisor's smirk vanished, replaced by a tight frown. The prince's eyebrows lifted slightly, not in offense but in surprise. His eyes locked onto hers, studying her with renewed interest. "You speak Arabic," he said at last, now in English, his tone curious rather than accusatory. Aisha's chin tilted up. 7 languages, actually. The advisor shifted uncomfortably, clearly wishing this moment would dissolve. The prince, however, seemed to be enjoying the unexpected turn. "What is your name?" he asked. "Aisha Coleman." "Aisha." He repeated it slowly, almost tasting the sound. "Do you know what your name means?" She didn't blink. "Yes. She who lives." His smile widened, subtle but genuine. "Then perhaps tonight you have truly lived, Miss Coleman. Most people here speak to me only when I ask them to. You spoke without hesitation, and you spoke truth." The hotel manager appeared then, moving quickly and looking as though he might faint. "Your Highness, please forgive her. She didn't mean." "I think she meant every word," the prince interrupted calmly, never taking his eyes off Aisha. Then, to the shock of everyone, he gestured toward the grand doors of the ballroom. "Walk with me." Aisha hesitated. She was still holding a damp cleaning rag, and her knees ached from crouching, but the weight of every gaze in the corridor pressed against her back. The manager's mouth opened as if to protest, but he closed it when the prince's bodyguard subtly shifted to make space for her. As she stepped beside him, the hum of disbelief from the crowd was almost deafening. In all her years working here, she had never once been invited into that ballroom as anything but staff. Tonight, she crossed the threshold not as the cleaning lady with the rag in her hand, but as someone the prince had chosen to hear. What she didn't know was that this single act, the decision to answer in a language she wasn't supposed to know, would be the first domino in a chain that would entangle her in royal politics, family secrets, and choices that could change both their lives forever.